The most unusual thing about this white-tailed deer is not its Roman nose. No, that's unusual enough, but look at the coloration on this deer. It's mainly white. Bob Pullman got this deer, and I assume you hunt deer because you like to eat deer too, don't you, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, well, this deer, the question that I know you have, and I know most of our audience has, which only Glenn Dutterer, Extension Wildlife Biologist, can answer. Does a deer that's colored like this have more white meat than the average?
Guess I've got 80% fewer answers for that.
You think so? Well, we're going to try to answer some of these questions about albino deer in just a moment because it is Thursday night, and it's time for Michigan Outdoors.
From the rugged...
Oftentimes, white-tailed deer that have at least partial albinism are totally white. They don't have spots like this, do they, Glenn?
No, a true albino, 100% albino, is pure white, and then the eyes are pink, and the ears are pink, and the nose is pink. So this isn't a full albino, it's a partial albino.
Okay, about what percent is it? You had to check that at Michigan State. Dr. Sikarsky, the vet?
Yes, he told me it was 80%.
Of course, you can see it has the normal color eyes, but what about its nose? Did he say anything about that? It does have a distinct shape on its nose.
He said on albinos, they're deformed in several different ways, and the nose, it's he said, is more rounded than normal. And also on the back feet, there's 2 lumps there right down by the hoofs there, where he says very unusual, and there's one on that one, identical one on the inside of the other leg. And he couldn't understand why they were like that, because they're not on normal deer.
Because the antlers, this is about a what, 5-point?
5-point.
Missing a matching tine on this side, but it's an unusual deer. You ever seen anything like this, Glenn?
I've never seen one spotted like this. I've seen various levels of albinism, but never where it occurred in spots like this. This looks almost like an Appaloosa. No, I've never seen one spotted like this.
Not too many albino animals in the wild.
No, the albino color is an aberration. It's a lack of a gene that maintains color in the fur or the feathers. And albinos simply don't survive as well, apparently because they're more visible. And so they're easier for predators to eliminate. And so that gene for the lack of gene for color is not a trait that's passed on.
Well, it might be linked with other deformities like its nose. Maybe it has some other problems albinos have that shorten their life.
Well, typically albinos do have other characteristics besides colors. You pointed out the nose. Often albino deer are partial crippled. There's something wrong with their legs. So albinism usually is associated with other body irregularities.
Well, Bob Pullman, you were hunting where?
Eaton Rapids.
Okay, and this is, of course, the second part of the bow season. No snow. Would have been maybe tougher to see with snow.
Yeah, with snow, I think it'd been pretty difficult to see, and when I did spot it, it was running up through the brush, and it was kind of dark brush, so it showed up real well.
Did you notice it was walking in a crippled manner or anything?
No, when I spotted it, it was running.
Oh, a running shot with a bow?
It was running right at me, and I was a little bit nervous when I seen it. I made a little noise, and it stopped 25 yards in front of me and stood there and looked at me.
Did you make that noise on purpose?
No, I was shocked.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, you used, it looks like on your bow here. Let's see that bow. Looks like you have a game tracker on here. The string?
Yes, I used the game tracker at the time, and without it, I don't believe I would have found it.
How far did it run?
It went about 250 yards, and I had approximately 125 yards of string out.
I'll be darned. Well, that's a success story here with the game tracker, an unusual deer. Unusual deer. Do you know if any other albino? Well, hold it. There was another albino.
Yes, I believe there was this season another albino taken.
Another partial albino deer, but it wasn't spotted. Bob, we're going to take a look right now at our trophy report at that deer and some others. Hey, thanks for coming on. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And here's that other partial albino deer that's really more traditional, at least for partial albinos. Large amounts of white, but not ticked like Rob Pullman's. This is a doe, and hunter Tom Tryon from Clio said the same thing Rob Pullman did when he first saw it. He thought it was a goat. But this mutation in color came from Iosco County. Now, this 10-point buck is a trophy in anybody's book, but Jeff Olkowski from Roseville got an added bonus with this prize, nearly 100 pounds of boneless meat. At least it's close to 100 pounds because most deer that dress out at 120 pounds will yield maybe 40 pounds of boneless meat. But Jeff's buck, taken from the Gaylord area, weighed twice that, 240 pounds dressed out. That's a lucky trophy. I know you can't eat antlers, but Jim's buck should stack up well in the trophy book. A typical 12-pointer with 9-inch tines. Jim Bowers is from Saginaw, and I'll bet that he took this trophy near home. Saginaw area is a good area to hunt if you're looking for a buck to make our Michigan Outdoors Trophy Report. Well, it's Christmas time now in Michigan Outdoors, Ed.
Right.
We've seen some trophies here in a trophy report, but, you know, a lot of hunters and anglers wonder how they can improve their success during the course of the year. And I imagine there are a lot of you out there who are wondering, what do I get for the sportsman or the hunter or the fisherman? We have a bunch of ideas right now that we're going to run by you here. These are for bow hunters. We're starting with some ideas. This is called a game tracker, invented by a Michigan man, Bob Eastman, up around Flint. What it is, it's a spool of, like, dental floss that pulls out from the middle. You attach this, one end to your arrow, the other end stays on your bow, and it leaves the trail through the woods, you know, when you hit a deer, and you can follow it, find it. It's especially good when it's raining or, you know, even in snow like this. Even though the game tracker is white, you could still follow the monofilament. What is monofilament? It's like dental floss, actually. People are concerned, they say, psychologically, it has to affect the flight of an arrow, you know, but for, honestly, 20, 25 yards, it doesn't. It really doesn't. And looking inside this, it's kind of interesting. They got this idea from the construction business. The way they get electrical wires through the conduits in buildings is that they'll shoot something like this. They have a little gun, and they'll shoot it through the conduits, and then they'll attach the wires and pull the wires through. So he said, well, why couldn't we use this for archery, for bow hunting? Look how the thread, the monofilament pulls out here. You can blow it out just like that. Just no drag on it at all. But that's a Michigan invention called the Game Tracker, which is a good Christmas gift idea for bow hunters.
Well, talking about bow hunters, how about a subscription to the Michigan Bow Hunters magazine, newsletter, their association? It's a great, well, you're a Michigan
I'm
bow
a member
hunter,
of Michigan Bow Hunters. I'd recommend that every bow hunter in the state join this organization. They come out with this publication once a month. And the bow hunters are also affiliates of us here at Michigan Outdoors, and so everybody who's a member of the bow hunters will also receive Inside Michigan Outdoors, our little newsletter, regularly. That's a good idea. That's cost about $7 for an individual membership.
Keeps you up to date on what's going on in the
Up-to-date in the outdoors.
bow hunting world.
That's right. Now here's something, this is interesting. Another Michigan organization that's dedicated to promoting trophy bucks, finding the big bucks in this state, because people across the country haven't really recognized Michigan as a, you know, big state for big deer. But they have been compiling data for the past couple years on the trophy bucks, where they come from. The only place you can get this information is in Buck Facts, and this is a Michigan organization, Commemorative Bucks. Write to us here at Michigan Outdoors. We'll tell you how to get affiliated. But it's a kind of an interesting thing to follow where these big deer come from.
Well, you know, Fred, another interesting gift, I guess, that I got to try out the other day was a tent. It's called the Oyster Tent. It's made by a guy in Ann Arbor. And this is something that you can use, especially in weather like we're having at this time of the year, when you need to set that tent up right away. This thing comes self-contained. Everything, it comes, well, as you can see there, with 6 tie-downs. Of course, everything on this tent is made in a way that it won't scratch any parts on your car. Comes covered. It's very securely tied down with tie downs that go through your windows. Is
it difficult to put on and take off of your car?
No, that whole tent there weighs 50 pounds. It's very, very light. They make it out of, I don't know, space-age material. Now, it comes with a pole, which I happened to leave at home, but I found this stick. It works just as well as what actually comes with a tent to help me with a little leverage to pull this up. And just one little tug, and this is why they call it the Oyster Tent. It just folds right out there. And now, as you can see, one leg of it is your car. Now, the other leg is this ladder here, and it bolts on with a couple of wing nuts.
Doesn't look like it takes too long to put it
No,
in.
you can put this thing up in, you know, I didn't time it. I'd say less than 5 minutes, 5 minutes or less. It has 6 zipper holes like this around the tent with good mesh screening. And it also inside, it has a nice foam pad so that you can just crawl in there. And as you can see, I'm going to zip this thing up.
Seem pretty comfortable?
Yeah, it's about a 2-seater, two-person tent.
Two people could sleep in it?
Yeah, and it's very comfortable.
Well, that's an idea. Made in Ann Arbor, you say?
Yes, a Michigan product. Right?
Here's another Michigan product from under the tree. This is called a flex gun rod. Maybe you've seen this in magazines or in sporting goods stores. An interesting invention here, a way of cleaning your guns. Of course, keeping a gun clean is very important, but people have had the problem. They don't realize it, but when you are swabbing out the bore, especially with the wire brushes, and pulling it down, a lot of times you can get more dirt into the action of your gun, you know, in the chamber down there than was there in the first place. So let's go to the inventor of this Michigan product, the flex gun rod, and find out how it works.
It's called the flex gun rod. Our whole philosophy is breech to muzzle clean. As you know, conventional kits screw together, you push from the muzzle to the breech, so you're pushing dirt, sand, and moisture into the action of the gun. That's what ruins a gun. The flex gun rod philosophy is breech to muzzle. If you would, sir, would you put your finger at the end of the muzzle? Once the flex gun rod gets in the diameter of the bore, it loses its flexibility and becomes a ramrod. And we've pushed over 3 inches of packed mud out of here. The NRA, last December, wrote an article on it and put it through a much more stringent test than this. This is a relatively new product, although we've been in about 15 national magazines now. The flex gun rod also fits any caliber, from a .22 caliber up, and any gauge shotgun from a .410. It's pocket portable. It's meant to go with you in the woods. It's on a ball swivel. So when it goes through, it's going to swivel. It's going to follow the rifling. It's going to give you a better clean. Now all you have to do, obviously, is remove the brush, put the patch on the other end, send it back through. Now your firearm is clean. If you have any shotguns, the shotgun adapter comes with it. I'll just use this one right here. The shotgun adapter comes with it. You just screw your shotgun adapter in. Now it's all set for any gauge shotgun from a .410 up.
How about that? Flex gun rod.
Great.
Another unique invention, ingenuity here, invented in Michigan. Handy idea for, you know, the hunters or shooters in your family. What else do we have here? Oh, here's one. Another Michigan product by Michigan writer Richard P. Smith from the Upper Peninsula. He wrote a book, Deer Hunting. A great book, because especially for Michigan hunters, because it's from a guy from Michigan. It's out. It's been so successful. It's out in paperback now.
Wow.
That's a good idea from Richard P. Smith. Deer hunting. Let's see. Here's something called the tree spider steps, invented by some more Michigan people. This time around, Okemos. Will Schultz is one of the inventors on this, and he's a veterinarian in Okemos. And we can illustrate how this works here in this tape that we took down at the Bow Hunters Rendezvous this past summer. And this has been popular among bow hunters because these tree steps are made out of plastic. They wrap around the tree with this belt. They don't put any marks in the tree. They don't harm the tree. One thing that might, well, it concerned me was the fact that there's a little give there. But Will assures me they've tested it. It's insured. They've had no problems, no breakage. It doesn't harm the tree. It gets you up and down quickly.
If they're made out of plastic, it looks like they'd be pretty light, too.
Oh, they are lightweight. But this is some space-age plastic here that's incredibly strong. But I found it very, very simple to put around the tree. It only takes about, a minute or two to strap 4 of them around the tree once you get the hang of it. And you can crawl up and down and take them off very quickly. That's another added feature. You just unloosen around the back end. It has a little attachment there for the way it's hooked on. It's very simple to operate. Something we can be proud of, again, as a Michigan product. That's right, called the tree spider. How about that? Gift idea, because these things like this might even become law, that you can't harm trees at all. Tree stands, permanent tree stands with nails in them are already illegal. So this conserves trees and the bark, and it's a good idea, very good idea. Speaking of Michigan writers, David Ritchie, who is the outdoor writer of the Detroit News, wrote a book, Trophy Freshwater Game Fish. And this is on the market, very popular, from a Michigan fellow who tells how to catch those big ones. So you could be listed in our Michigan Outdoors Trophy Report. But now is not the time of year to be fishing like this, you know, out in a boat. We have ice fishing season coming up. I have some tips, some ideas. I'll do a little explanation here about ice fishing for you as we go to the film with Stan Levenseat. Of course, Stan is Mr. Michigan Fishing to many people. He was for many years working for the Michigan Travel Bureau. Now he's retired up in Traverse City. Imagine he's eagerly awaiting the ice fishing season. Using a spud is one way to chip a hole through the ice. That's what he's using right there. This is a very inexpensive way to get through the ice. It requires a little elbow grease, a little muscle. Doesn't do a real clean job of making a hole in the ice, and that can be important to have a clean hole there so your line doesn't catch on the edges. If that, by the way, costs around $10. You can get a spud. Here is what's known as the Swedish Ice Auger. For those of you who aren't too enthused about ice fishing, you can at least appreciate the ease with which the Swedish Ice Auger goes through the ice. And it bores a nice clean hole. The stand shows right there. And that's up a step from the spud. If you've been through the sporting goods store shopping for some of your sportsman friends, especially the ladies who go through and wonder what all of that is, it looks like it's something from the cooking department, a strainer, but that's called a skimmer. And the plastic skimmer is an excellent one to use. Now this is a real treat. If you can afford, you probably get this $35, $40, $45. This auger that bores a hole through the ice in this manner, we found to be the fastest, easiest, well, way to do it by hand anyway. Another thing, the ice, of course, is caught between the teeth of that auger, the drill, ice drill as it's called, and when you pull it out of the hole, most of the ice comes out with it. But you see it as a nice, neat, round hole. You can get them in different sizes. There's the skimmer. Plastic skimmer is a good one to use because the metal ones are okay, but they tend to get caked with ice. So a plastic one, if you notice that the ice fisher person in your family doesn't have a skimmer like that, that'd be a good idea. Stocking stuffer. Now this would be a great idea to chip in together for the fisherman who's serious, who would like to get out on Saginaw Bay quite a bit, but you know late in the season, Ed, that ice on Saginaw Bay gets 2, sometimes 3 feet thick.
You need one of those then.
Yeah, that's probably $150, $200. But chip in and that would be a good investment. Now ice fishing, the gear that you use for ice fishing is not nearly as sophisticated as what you use in the summer. What Stan is using here is a little weight which he clips on the hook. What he's doing is just finding the depth to see how deep the water is because he wants to start fishing right off the bottom. That's a little called a sneaky bobber or a spring bobber. In ice fishing, you don't reel the line normally back onto the reel because you wouldn't know the depth and you'd lose your perspective on how deep the water is. So you just hand line it up oftentimes. We'll see Stan catching fish that way. But that's a little teardrop lure. Tiny thing. It has virtually no weight. The line in ice fishing is about 1 pound, 2 pound test. You want thin line because these fish move very slow in the water. They don't need much enticement. They don't want to chase anything. Their metabolism is slow. Most popular baits are little grubs, mousies, corn borers. You don't use traditional night crawlers, angleworms, that type of thing, but you tend to use things like grubs. And you just put them on the hook just as an added enticement. So Stan put that on the hook. He keeps them in his pocket. You don't want to set the grubs out on the ice because they'll freeze, obviously. But he's feeding that line back down through the hole, starting at the bottom. You can give it just some little wiggles to try to entice a bluegill or a crappie or maybe a trout to hit that. You know, we're talking about trophy fish, like Dave Ritchie's book, Trophy Freshwater Game Fish, and most of them you recognize are caught in the summer. But do you know, Ed, that ice anglers catch more fish per hour than people do fishing in the summer?
Is that right?
That's true.
That's surprising.
Fish tend to be easier to catch. Of course, you can get right over them. You can find where they are. The fish don't move like they do in the summer. The schools don't move and roam around nearly as much. Their metabolism is down. The spring bobber is one way to go. Another way is just to use a little cork-type float. A little harder to detect when a fish is nibbling because essentially what they do is they'll come up to the bait and they'll inhale it. They don't grab it and run with it. They'll inhale it. So you want to watch for any little movement on the bobber. Right there is one of the most important things, warm feet. Warm feet make all the difference in the world ice fishing. I suggest if the fisherman in your family has some felt pack boots, maybe get an extra pair of felts because they do wear out and wear thin. You want a pair of gloves. Now, he's wearing a couple pairs of long underwear in all likelihood, but you wonder why is he wearing a raincoat? Well, that makes a good windbreaker. You get a little breeze out on the ice like that after you've been sitting there a half hour, and you can get mighty chilly. The lantern, of course, works well at night, but during the day you find lanterns used just to keep warm. Ice fishing shanty is the ultimate in protection, but you can't move a shanty around the way you can pick up and go with your, see the ice drill there by the car? Mm-hmm. Pick up and go and move to another spot. Find out where the fish are and where they're hitting. But there's Stan putting a little action to the bait. You don't want too much, because you can pull that bait away and the fish won't chase it. They move up very slowly to a lure or something they see, and it takes some time. But you'll watch the bobber go down. In this case, the fish hit it pretty well. They don't always do that. Like I said, they'll inhale it, and then they'll spit it out if they feel the hook. There it goes. It goes down, and their stand is pulling it up, hand over hand, like that. That's the way it's done ice fishing, and you can catch some good fish that way. As I said, you're likely to catch more fish per hour. You wonder, why do it, though? It's a mighty cold way to go, but it's fun in Michigan outdoors, and coming up just in a few weeks. Looks like a crazy sport, doesn't it, ice fishing?
Hey, it's the only way to get them, though, sometimes, right?
Sometimes it is. Only way to get them in the winter, that's for sure. But, you know, I can't really explain why I like to ice fish or why people like to ice fish. That's a hard thing to explain. But one thing I can say, if you're not warm, you're not going to enjoy it. And here's a couple items made in Michigan that will increase your enjoyment and warmth outdoors. And this is great for bow hunters with this camouflage on it. Also comes in a blaze orange here for hunters. And this is called the Mighty Muff. And a muff like this, if you haven't used one, can keep your hands a lot warmer, really, than gloves or mittens, because you can rub your hands together. And then, say you're ice fishing, you know, you can keep your hand warm and keep that bobber moving and put your hand back in here, pick up your bow when you need to, or pick up a gun when you're hunting. But Mighty Muff, Michigan product, good idea to keep warm in the winter. And here's another one. Although I haven't used it, people who have swear by it. It's called the Cozy Up Back Warmer. Now, you wouldn't think that your back would affect you that much outdoors, but they say if you keep your kidneys warm like this while you're sitting or even walking, gives you a little support back there and warmth that can ease lower back pain and that type of thing.
Great.
Oh, for people who have that problem,
sure,
it might be something to consider. Keep you warm. The Cozy Up Back Warmer made by, this is Chad Williams who invented that up in Cadillac.
How about a Michigan magazine, Michigan Fisherman? That's published here in Lansing by one of your friends.
Sure, Kenny Darwin.
Ken
He's
Darwin.
done a great job editing, publishing this publication, all about Michigan fishing.
Right, and a heck of a lineup of writers. Kay Ritchie, Bob Musselman, some of the tops are right in this magazine.
Michigan Fisherman, an ideal Christmas gift idea for the fishermen in your family. And, of course, everybody would enjoy the Michigan Natural Resources magazine. This latest issue is a real corker, and I tell you, this is their photo issue by photos sent in by their subscribers, by people in Michigan, some tremendous photography by Michigan people right here. But this is a Christmas gift idea. You've seen it advertised, seen it on the newsstands. Another thing you've seen out, which is a good gift idea, Michigan Out of Doors. And this publication is put out by Michigan United Conservation Clubs, MUCC, a great organization to support watchdogging legislation in our state. Of course, we've had Tom Washington on the show before in our Fishing for Answers section. Tom is the executive director of MUCC. You'll be seeing him on again with controversial issues.
Well, really, the purpose of the organization is to educate people in the wise use of natural resources. But the reason we were founded was to keep politics as much as possible out of natural resource management.
The criticism has been made that the morale in the department is low.
And, of course, Dr. Howard Tanner, director of the DNR, Tom Washington, Charlie Gunther. These fellows are at the top in Natural Resources Administration in Michigan, involved in a lot of controversy, and there's a publication that really keeps up on the controversy. That's called the Northwoods Call. You probably haven't heard about it because it doesn't receive a lot of publicity, but the people who subscribe to it and read it find it extremely interesting. It is a watchdog on legislative issues, on hunting and fishing, published by Glenn Shepard up in Charlevoix. It's called the Northwoods Call. The subscription is $12 a year, and it comes out 24 times a year, just about every other week. But this is really a good publication. We use it all the time to keep up to date on the issues.
Keeps us abreast.
That's for sure. And here's something else for anglers. Although we don't use night crawlers in the winter for fishing through the ice, at least I don't know of too many people who do, the Night Crawler Manual. A great little publication here that tells all about night crawlers. The fellow we've had on the show, Bob Pichet, he was here this past spring. He, of course, had some worm bedding, and he showed us how to take care of worms, night crawlers, properly. He keeps worms like this over the winter in his basement. With this worm bedding, he goes by what it says in the night crawler. He knows so much about worms. He's going to be down at the Boat and Fishing Show. First week in February down at Cobo Hall. You'll be able to talk to Bob, the worm man, to find out the secrets to success. Find out about this night crawler habitat. There they are. He has lively crawlers like that this winter in his basement. An unusual Christmas gift idea, the Nightcrawler Manual. And as I said, Bob Paget will be back on Michigan Outdoors with more tips about nightcrawlers. And you'll see him down at the Boat and Fishing Show in Detroit, 1st of February. It's an interesting fellow, the Worm Man. Another fellow who's going to be down doing demonstrations the first weekend, we have him lined up to come down to the Boat and Fishing Show the first weekend, is Ed Stowe, the fish filleting champ. And of course, fish filleting, people have to have sharp knives. In fact, all sportsmen do. You cut yourself less on a sharp knife than a dull one. We'll get into that when we do a feature on knives, but sharpening knives is really very simple, and generally people just use a stone, a whetstone like that. What happens when you use a stone and when you sharpen a knife is that it gets, the blade gets down to almost like tinfoil in certain parts, and it is very thin. People think a knife gets dull. What happens is when they're cutting through is they bend over the edge of the blade. It bends over itself, and that's why it goes dull. And that is also why fellows like Ed Stowe, your fish filleting people, and butchers use what's called a butcher's steel. They take a couple strokes on that, and it knocks the little burrs off of the end. You can cut some more, you'll bend it over, knock the burrs off. That's what I'm asking for Christmas, is a small steel that I can take in the field. Another Christmas gift idea. Of course, bow hunters have an important law that came up. You have some information on it, Ed?
Right. We'll find out about it when we go to our outdoor calendar.
Great idea, Ed. Just got the Sportsman's Banquet. Great idea for a gift idea for Christmas. Get a friend or a spouse or the family some tickets to the Sportsman's Banquet coming up at the end of January. Of course, that'll be a good Christmas gift for Michigan Outdoors, too, because that goes in the Michigan Outdoors TV Fund here at Channel 23. Helps us keep going. But write to us if you want information on anything you Christmas. Another thing about Inside Michigan Outdoors, this was our last issue we put out in August. We're doing a new, revised, expanded. We've had so much success with this and a flood of letters that we've had to get on to a different system of mailing it. We're going to put an expanded version out in January, 1st of January, so everybody who's lined up for it is going to get it. Also get a Christmas gift subscription to Inside Michigan Outdoors. Next week, special show. Our old friend Howard Shelley, who worked many years with Morton F. on Michigan Outdoors, is going to be with us with some classic films. All right. And he's going to be our featured guest. So join us next week right here, Thursday night on Michigan Outdoors.
And sometimes when the moon brings out the diamonds in the snow, and the stillness of the forest lies encased in our